controlled more than 80% of global oil supply. Today it controls less than 40%.
When you dominate a market in terms of supply, it gives you pricing power. And OPEC over the last few decades have had that kind of pricing power. They could essentially tamper with the supply in order to create a price that is best in terms of profit maximizing. When you have an outsider competitor enter the market and are undercutting OPEC, it will of course create a lot of tensions within the organization, because it creates a prisoner's dilemma whereby the specific producing countries will be shooting themselves in the foot if they start bringing back supply in order to affect the price.
OPEC's latest production report shows that in October the cartel's production fell by 230,000 barrels, but the rest of the oil-producing world made that up with a 250,000 barrel increase in production. Nonetheless, OPEC still has some clout left.
If OPEC cuts, the market will react, I believe. So OPEC is relevant and they can have a strong influence on the market. Obviously, the US production is increasing, and that increases the share of non-OPEC production. But OPEC still has about a third of the market, so they have an influence on the market.
Meanwhile, though, the oil price continues to slide, after Saudi and Kuwait have both said they will not cut production. And this at a time when the American Petroleum Institute reports a drop in inventories for US oil supplies.
Reading the comments of Saudi Arabia and Kuwait, I don't see those two countries cutting. So if another OPEC member is willing to cut in order to control oil prices, there will be that. But at this point in time, some of the big producers have been quite vocal and have said they will not cut. So my view would be no cut.
Then there are, of course, also the economic realities. The only economy in growth mode is the USA, and it now has its own supplies. This means demand from the rest of the world will fall next year. OPEC thinks that until 2018, demand will be lower than it was in 2013. This graphic shows how investment into commodities as a whole, including oil, has dropped since 2011, as record high prices are no longer the norm. And we've seen many mining houses focus on cutting costs to cope with the lower prices. This also goes for the oil industry. OPEC members are suffering. For example, Nigeria has seen its currency decimated as a result of the revenues that would be lost due to the slump in oil prices. And Venezuela suffers a similar fate.
It will mean the decrease in oil price, which will be good for the net importing countries. But for many of the large oil exporting countries in Africa, like Angola, Nigeria, Algeria, Egypt, it's going to be tough because there's going to be a cut in capital expenditures. The operators of the oil fields will start relooking at their exploration budgets. They will reconsider their development budgets. Obviously, the fields which are already in development, you cannot stop it. They will be completed. But if oil price stay at a low level for long enough, then there will be a curtailment of production. So there will be a positive effect on the importing countries because consumers will benefit, but there will be a negative effect on the exporting countries. And you can see that with the Nigerian currency taking a big dive recently because of dropping oil prices.
All this is causing tension within OPEC, as the economic needs of member states require them to cut production to boost the price. But there is speculation that Saudi wants to keep the price low in order to put pressure on Iran, and its ally, the USA, would also like to see Russia suffer a little more under a weaker oil price. Gunther Deutsch, SABC News.